Said tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here.
Tariffs? What would that look like?
Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. America is the #1 economy on earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Welcome to Faith and Freedom, the conversation where faith and politics collide. We bring you real, honest discussions on the issues shaping America through a biblical lens. Here are your hosts, Kathy Ryan and LaTanya Evans.
Well, hello there.
We're back.
Yes, we're back. We apologize. We've had quite the 2 weeks, and it has to do with my life. And, I missed you guys. A lot going on. A little bit. The first week was that I was having some health issues. I'm much better now. Thank you to prayer. And then a week ago, last Monday, so it's been now 2 weeks, my mom fell and fractured her femur in 2 places. So I have been dealing with that. She was in the hospital. Now she's in a nursing facility. Hopefully she can walk soon because she can't walk right now. So, yeah. So thank you, everyone. Prayers are appreciated for my mom, and we will keep you posted on that. So, how you been, LaTanya?
Wow. I tell you, it's April has came in with, when they say April showers, I think April showers. Yeah. I was like, I know there was something with it. April showers, April tears, but with all of that, I tell you, the joy in the chaos, when things don't make sense, and that's where that strength comes. And so that is how I would say, for the month of April, it's been a lot of loss and grief, but in the midst of all that, there is like a peace that you have that comes that you can't explain it. It's just beyond that understanding. And maybe I wouldn't even say maybe, but greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. So the peacemaker is inside us, the Holy Spirit. So that is what gives that, that's what gives that peace, when otherwise you would be like pulling your hair out and all kinds of things. So yeah. But I'm so thankful that you're back. You, like Angela said, we've been missed, and we've missed you all too.
Yes, we have. Yeah. But we're back. Things are good. Yes, we are meeting on, we're airing on a Saturday instead of Friday. We hope to get, back to our Friday nights. Well, with that said, let's get into it. So, big topic, the tariffs. It's been crazy. The media hasn't been kind. In fact, we got Carl Higbee on Wednesday did a great monologue and explanation of the tariffs and what's happening and what liberal media is doing, to not help the situation, and explaining what Trump is doing. In fact, we have a couple of clips here that will explain what the reason for the tariffs. And, 77 million people voted for President Trump. And one of them was to put America first.
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of America first is fair trade. And we have not had fair trade in this country for decades.
Yes.
What is it? NAFTA was pretty much the beginning of the end of fair trade in the United States, and that was under President Clinton. I believe it's NAFTA, where he made a trade agreement with Mexico, and then automobiles started being built in Mexico, which in turn closed down automobile factories manufacturing here in the United States.
Okay.
So mainly, foreign made. Well, that's not even true, because I know that Chevrolet trucks were built in Mexico at one point. So even American made vehicles were being manufactured outside the United States. So what that means is that American citizens' jobs were lost, and then a lot of the manufacturing was sent to other countries. And you mentioned yesterday you went around your house looking at the different things that you have in your home, finding out where they were made.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that really quick, because yes, okay, let me see. I did with the tariffs. I did not understand what they meant, and the whole thing about it. And I'm crash learning actually. And so I just started to pick up things in my house, and I was like, okay, where is it made? And everything, for the most part, it, like, okay, this beautiful calculator right here, made in China.
Right.
This isn't that I have anything against the people of China, but I was like, oh my gosh, everything is, a big portion. Now, this, believe it or not, and then this will be the last. This is some vitamins. I'm not, advertising. And I just happened to look on the back, made in the USA, with US and international ingredients. But this was made in the USA. So I was just like, that's not good if we are just being consumers and not producers. And yet I see how it happened, because the draw was, bring it over here. We're going to use our cheap slave labor. And then, and just like Kevin O'Leary, what he was saying, taking, stealing, the ideas, whatnot, and then remanufacturing it and shipping it back over here, and we don't even know what's in it. And our children, people's children, us, and the likes are dealing with this stuff, and we don't even know what's in it. So
Right.
I have a different little twist to this. Since we are already in it, I'm thinking this should be a great opportunity for people here to be like, you know what? Let me make something in America. Look at our paper plates. If you buy paper plates, I'm just using that as a quick example. Made, right now, currently made in China. So then why don't you go and make paper plates made in the USA? You're not going to have tariffs, of that on you. There's, I think, even a maybe tax cut or something that you would get for doing that. This is a great time to make in America, because you're going to be rewarded. We have a president that is going to reward made in America. So these companies that were making it over there, tax beyond who knows what, make it over here, and
Right.
and you're going to get the benefit, and etc. So I just had to say that quick blurb, but I was like, literally everything just about is made over there. And I think that maybe China's government got cocky and like, they need us. We actually helped build up their their economy, or helped build that up.
Yeah, because they're shipping their products here in the United States, and we as consumers are purchasing them. And if you shop at Walmart or Target, any of those big box stores, a lot of those products that you are purchasing are from China. They're not made in America.
Right.
Even American flags. You really got to look and see American flags. Where is it made? Because some of them are made in China. And I know that the last time I purchased the flag, because since our son went into the Navy, our American flag is up night and day, unless there's a storm. But it's up night and day. So it gets pretty beaten up, and it can get caught in the roof. And there was a tree out in front of our old house that it used to get caught on that we had to trim all the time. So it got torn up. So we were replacing a flag like every 6 months. And so, but here comes the other thing about Made in America. So I did shop on Amazon, and I had to go through a lot of listings to find an American flag that was made in the USA. But I did find it. But there's, other companies that advertise flags that are made here in America that cost 3 or 4 times more than what I purchased my flag for. That's the other reason. Now, when it's saying that, I'm sure some of the materials that made that flag came from outside the United States because, they were less expensive. And like, even in my t-shirt store, for me to purchase a t-shirt made in America, I'm paying 3 times more than I would from one that's made outside the United States. And I do my best. So if I were to do that, then I would have to charge $60 to $100 for a t-shirt to be able to be profitable.
So what's the solution then? So we know we want to encourage and to produce more here and not be such consumers. So what is the solution, or what do you?
It's going to take some time. The other issue here is because labor costs so much here in the United States. We have a minimum wage now. What is the federal minimum wage?
Is that that's regardless of where you live?
Yeah, because here in California,
I haven't caught up with it, honestly.
Here in California, minimum wage is $15 an hour. Unless you work at a fast food store, then it's $20 an hour.
Oh.
So let's ask ChatGPT.
Okay. Wow. I
So,
did not know.
Yeah. So that in itself is going to cause products to be more than if they were purchased from China. So yeah, California now is $16.50. It went up as of January 1st. So $16.50. Minimum wage for federal contractors is $17.75 per hour.
Oh wow.
The Raise the Wage Act of 2025 introduced in Congress proposed an increment raise in federal minimum wage to $17 per hour by 2023. So it's to go up to that. So, based on that versus, somebody working like in China for $1 or $2 a day.
Right.
Yeah, our products made in America is going to cost more. So what's the solution? Good question. Because of our unions and everything, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't get paid a fair wage. They should. But people also need to realize if the wage goes up, so does the cost of the product. Like when last April 1st of 2024, minimum wage for fast food workers went up to $20 an hour. Well, that meant a Happy Meal went up to $20. I'm being facetious, but no kidding. A Big Mac meal went up to $15.
Wow.
It went up from $10 to $15 to cover that wage. So who's going to pay the increase of the cost? The consumer.
Consumer. Wow. Well,
So I mean, yeah. And it's these people that keep wanting to increase the wage that are out there. It's like what was it last year? The Starbucks workers were out picketing because and protesting because they wanted their fair wage.
right.
And it's like those are entry level jobs. You start at the minimum. When I started working at McDonald's when I was 17 years old, I got paid $2.50 an hour.
$2? Wow. That's, I don't know what to say. Stay home and cook, I say.
Yeah. Well, even then, the cost to the transportation costs, the workers in the supermarket, and all of that, the minimum wage goes up. So does the cost of the product in the supermarket.
Right.
So you ask what the solution is. If you say lower costs, that also means lower wages, and people are going to squawk.
Mm.
There's going to be an uproar about it. So, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. And now, President Trump wants manufacturing to come back in the United States and increasing these tariffs. First of all, the tariffs started, his plan started immediately when he took office to close the border.
Right.
That was the initial use of the tariffs, and it was against Canada and Mexico. That was phase one. And then Mexico cooperated. they they started working with the U.S. And then Canada, the new prime minister, he squawked. Trudeau squawked, and all of that, and increased tariffs on us. So it became a trade war, and all of that, and all President Trump wanted Canada to do, because a lot of fentanyl was coming over the border through Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So all he wanted them to do was to stop it, to put more protection on the border to prevent the fentanyl to come over. So and that started it. Now, phase two is fair trade across the world, the global market. And he raised tariffs. He matched. No, he didn't. Well, he raised tariffs to match the tariffs that they were charging us.
Right.
That's fair.
Well, this is what I just want to say really quick to this is, like you were saying, Kathy, how with how things would over here, and how they would sell things made in America are sold higher, etc. But this is how I'm looking at this, and help me with this. It seems like what President Trump wants to do is that he wants to wipe the slate clean and basically say, okay, now everybody we trade with, we're coming to the table with you. Everybody
Right.
that we trade with. So if you tax us, I don't think he's saying like, if you want to tax us 40%, then we're going to tax you. or maybe I could be wrong. Or is that what he's saying? That, can there be some fluctuation? Or is he basically saying we're wiping the slate clean, so we're going to come up with an agreement? But whatever this agreement is, if you say 20% is what you want to tax us, fine. We're going to tax you 20%. So we can do with that. If you want to tax us, 10%, okay, then we'll tax you 10%. So is that what he's talking about? Because I think China, they were going like 60 taxing us, and it was very disproportionate. So is that what he's
It
talking
has been, yeah, it has been disproportionate. So what I suggest to everybody watching and everybody that will watch later is get Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, and read it.
Yeah.
You want to know how his brain works and how he does negotiating, is read that book, because he will come, and The Art of the Deal, and we do this all the time, is you come and ask for something outrageous. Come to the table asking for something outrageous. Start the conversation.
Wow.
Start the conversation, and then meet somewhere in the middle. But you got to start somewhere. And he starts big. Go big or go home. And when he did this, and he matched everybody that tariffed us on our products coming into their country, and he matched the tariffs that they charge us on and their products coming into our country, people started coming to the table, and countries started coming to the table and negotiating. So the European Union came to an agreement with Trump on fair trade. They came to a deal. You're muted. They came to a, yeah, I think that was Thursday.
They did come to a deal, because I think the minimum he said was 10%. He started.
Yeah. So I don't know what deal they came to, but a deal was reached, because the European Union came out and reached out to President Trump to make a deal.
Okay. Okay.
The only one that is still fighting back
It's China.
is China. So I have a clip here. This is from Sky News, and this is something that, last week, and this is what a lot of these the left-wing liberal media has been talking about, and and it's fear-mongering and scare tactics and all of that stuff, because they don't have anything else to talk about, because it's actually working. So this is a little bit of background on what's happened in the last week. So let's watch this clip. It's about 4 minutes long, and it's from Sky News. So it's from Australia. So it's not even an American news here.
Donald Trump set a trap and China walked straight into it. Yes, that's the state of play for the world economy as we speak. After a tumultuous week, Donald Trump gave a lifeline to essentially every country, dropping tariffs to 10% for 90 days after 75 nations scrambled to speak to Trump to negotiate deals. But there was one country that didn't come to the negotiation table: China. In fact, China is resisting, which Trump responded to by increasing their tariff to a whopping 125%, leaving them isolated in this tariff war against the US. Trump said, "Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125%, effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable." This was Trump's strategy all along: to regain US power by negotiating with allies and to isolate those who refuse to play ball.
And all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
Besant doubled down on this in another interview, saying the countries that surround China are even negotiating with the US, leaving China to fight this tariff war alone.
Our allies, Japan, South Korea, India, and I will note that they are all around China. We have Vietnam coming today.
Yeah.
So everyone is coming to the table, and basically China's surrounded.
Online commentators were in awe of the strategy, with this person saying, "Amazing, you boxed in China and exposed them. The strategy was amazing." But not everyone is convinced, with this commentator saying, "Trump made a big mistake and is now backtracking. You guys will spin this in your favor. In reality, the world called your bluff and you realized you screwed up. Now you are thankfully backtracking. Meanwhile, small businesses have no clue if these tariffs will go into effect again in 90 days. But despite taking tough action against China, Donald Trump is still speaking diplomatically about the rival superpower, instead blaming his predecessors for the mess he was forced to clean up.
A lot of people take heat for saying it, but I blame the people sitting at this desk more than I blame China. If China can get away with what they got away with taking hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars right out of our pocket because our people here were stupid, they were stupid people. Maybe corrupt. I don't know how you can be that stupid. How do you get to be president and you're stupid? But they certainly weren't courageous. And they allowed this to happen. If you could read first grade and you could read these agreements, you'd say, these are terrible deals.
And while some are panicking at Trump's tariffs, businessman and commentator Kevin O'Leary says they don't go far enough.
400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the number one economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall.
Online commentators applauded this approach, with this person saying, "And he's right. This seems to be the crux of the matter now. Either we dominate China now, while we're still strong enough to do it, or we never will. Trump is the first politician in half a century to have the guts to play his hand."
Wow. Kathy, two things stuck out to me. What Kevin O'Leary said when he said we won't always have this, being in this power. I thought that was very interesting that he said that. That kind of like, ooh, because I think Americans think, because for so long we have always been, in the position that we're in, and forget that we weren't always, because when America was being built and had to fight and all that, but not to go back in history, when he said that, I'm like, that really like, and then what that other person said when he said, if any time it is to go in, this is the time. He said we better go in and go in strong. And it just even now makes even more sense why there needed to be a Trump, Trump being in the office, not because he's so, people like, oh, worship not be, but that he got the guts to do it. And this time around, I had thought to myself, if he gets the presidency this time around, he's going to be even more emboldened because he can't run again. So it's not, and I don't think he wants to be selfish to ruin it for like JD Vance or somebody else. I don't, I know I don't believe he's trying to do that either, but he got the boldness to do it because he's not got that pressure trying to run again.
Right.
And so those two things stuck out to me, that if any time it is to go in hard, this is the time to do it, because no one else is going to do it. Like somebody once said, it's like political suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to mention that this is really, we need to really be
Well,
praying for President Trump, his
yes.
cabinet, and especially that he will stick to the course,
Yeah,
no matter what.
and not back down.
Yes.
So, yeah, China has such a foothold here in the United States that we don't even realize it.
How deep it is. Yep.
I ran across the post on Facebook from Josh Hawley, Senator Josh Hawley, and I should, I wish I had kept it, but basically what he was saying is, and I didn't realize this, but the GNC vitamin store, the vitamin store GNC,
Yeah.
it's national.
Yes.
Well, it's now owned by China.
What?
It's now owned by China, and there's a GNC store on every military base here in the United States. So,
How convenient.
and how did that happen?
How?
How was that allowed to happen by our government?
Are you
Seriously.
serious?
Yeah, how is that allowed to happen? I mean, the minute that China took possession on ownership of that company, it should have closed every single store on our military bases. Do you
Yes.
understand the national security implications?
That's what
Because they're getting our military's information, their credit card information, their IDs. You go in there and you buy with a credit card, you got that information.
wow.
That's huge. That's a huge national security. Not only buying farmland next to military bases and all of that,
I was, yeah.
you know, I'm sorry. I mean, we are a land of immigrants and all of that. But if you do not have citizenship here in the United States,
Yes,
you
yes.
should not be able to own property.
So are you telling me that there is people from China owning property who are not citizens?
Yes.
How could that be?
Well, because good old Obama says if you put in what was it, $500,000 into development of the United States, you're able to get a visa for a family member. That was his redevelopment program when he was president. So a lot of the shopping centers around here, especially in California, are owned by Chinese nationals. When I was at Coldwell Banker, Chinese national bought the center that we were in, and there was land next door that our brokers had bought to build a new office that they owned, because the one in Marietta was leased, and they made them such a good deal to buy that land next to us that they had to take it. China's got a huge foothold on here, and it's happened from the Bush years all the way through the Biden years. And Trump, his hands were tied because of the people that he surrounded himself with, that he was told to surround himself with in his cabinet and in his first presidency, that he could get nothing done. Now he's surrounded himself with people that are America first, that will actually get the job done.
Right.
Didn't listen to the old crony Republican Party, which I think needs to be redone, just as the Democrat Party's gonna be redone.
Yeah, gonna be redone. Yeah.
And the liberal media is not going to tell you any of this. They're not going to say a word. But I was outraged when I read that post from Josh Hawley on Facebook this morning.
Do you think President Trump is aware of that?
Well, he is now.
Wow.
And I think that every Chinese-owned piece of property, any foreign-owned piece of property, needs to be taken back by eminent domain.
Mm.
It needs to be taken back for national security. This is wrong.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely wrong. So,
Okay.
no, it's time to fight back on China. So, our next clip is from Flashpoint Thursday night. Floyd Brown, he is the founder of the Western Journal. And it was pretty interesting what he had to say.
Okay.
Tariff pause for nations who aren't retaliating. The China rate cranked to 125%. Stock soar immediately. World unites against CCP. Floyd, you saw this happen. You kind of knew this was coming, didn't you? You kind of thought this is going to be the end of this path.
Well, I'll tell you what, this president, every day I just wake up and I anticipate what's he going to do today. And, you know, they say he plays 3D chess, 4D chess, whatever you want to call it. But he effectively, in less than a week, completely isolated China, which is really the biggest strategic problem America has. He boxed them in. Today, their currency, the yuan, crashed. They've got all kinds of problems. And President Trump, once again, is making America first and doing it really well. And I think, it'll take time for everything to settle out and for us to rebuild our industrial base. But this is a good move, not just for the United States, but I think for the entire free world.
I agree with him. And by the way, Angela, taking back the property by eminent domain, the government needs to give them what they paid for it. I totally agree with that. And not market value. Not market value, because I know that they bought it cheap, pennies on the dollar, and they don't deserve to make a profit off of it. But you're correct, is they need to be, get back what they paid for it. But so communism is total government control, and every single company in China is, and I believe it's 51% owned by the Chinese government. So no independent person, no capitalism or anything like that, like we are in the United States. The government has to own part of the company. With that being said, before these tariffs, China was in economic trouble. Communist China is about to unravel. They've been a communist country for 100 years now, I believe. And it's reminiscent of Reagan, President Reagan, and what happened with the Soviet Union. And President Reagan put economic pressure on the Soviet Union, and eventually the Soviet Union collapsed.
Okay.
I'm not foretelling the future, because I'm not a prophet. I don't have a prophecy over this. I don't have a word from God over this. I just want to be clear on this. I just can see that there is a very big possibility, just like what, Floyd Brown had said, is that their money collapsed. China's money collapsed on Thursday, which means that its value was lessened. It tanked. So it's not worth much in the global market. These tariffs, just like, what they were saying about Canada, when you increase the tariffs, it's going to hurt them economically. Canada that says it's going to hurt the United States economically, but it's not, because our GDP is higher than Canada, and our GDP, I believe, is higher than China. So we're strong economically, but if China can't keep putting out product and not having to pay, 125% of the cost, because that's what that means. So if a product costs $1 to sell it in the United States, you got to tack on $1.25. That tax, so China's got to pay that tax of 120 or of $1.25. So if you're looking at the billions of dollars,
I wonder how much is that.
yeah. Well, let's go to this next clip. This was Fox Business on Martha Bartolomeo. I forget her name. Let me set this up. So I'm going to mute myself. Keep talking.
Okay. Wow. I tell you, this is a very interesting time to be alive in what all is happening, and things are happening in record speed. And when I even think about this, which I believe we'll look back on this and it'll be one for the history books, there is, I think, a reason why things are happening so quick. President Trump, I think we're at our 100-day mark with him having been in office. Are we at the 100th day mark yet? Okay, I guess Kathy will let us know when we get back on. But how they say the first 100 days is very, very important. And I tell you, I have been really amazed and encouraged by, just in other words, when is probably the last time you actually had, and I'm not saying that President Trump is staying 100 with everything, but he is real. It's like he's going down a checkbox. Like, okay, got this, said I was going to do that, and it's just, going down the list. And so, yeah.
Trump's 100th days will be April 30th.
When? April 30th will be how many?
100 days.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here is Kevin O'Leary again. We're not going to watch this whole clip, but for a couple of minutes of it. And, he goes in to explain more of what's happening in China. And the reason we need to, hi, Teresa. The reason we need to actually wrangle in China, because they're out of control.
Yeah.
Joining me now, the man himself, O'Leary Ventures Chairman Kevin O'Leary. Kevin, you reminded me with that comment, smash heads into the wall. You reminded me of what Xi Jinping said, okay? When he was celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party, he said, anybody who gets in the way of China's reunification with Taiwan is going to get their heads smashed to dust. Remember he said that? Is that where you got that?
It was ringing in my mind, Maria, that the rhetoric was just being raised, and I thought it would be a good comeback. But, at this point, we got to face reality here. China is not just a trade war. We have to figure out a way to finally fix the problems that have existed since 2000 when they joined the WTO. They've never abided by the rules and regulations ever. There's no mechanism by which you can dispute any kind of business issue, including IP theft. And it's a typical situation. I'll make it very simple for everybody to understand. You invest in innovation in the United States, and the product takes off, and as soon as it hits a run rate of 5 million annually, it gets knocked off in China, manufactured there, reintroduced into the U.S. market at around 30 to 40% off because they don't have to recuperate any R&D. And sometimes the original innovating company goes bankrupt. I've kind of had enough of that now. I've been watching it. I've never been able to litigate there, and I can't even get access to their financial markets or even sell products there sometimes without having a partner that's 51%. I want you to be aware of something, Maria, that I think people missed yesterday. Atkins was approved. His nomination went through for head of the SEC. Then Senator Scott issued a letter, made it public yesterday, that he had asked this person to enforce the law about delisting Chinese companies that were not compliant with GAAP. They were given 3 years, then the law was modified to give them 2 years. None of them were compliant. There's billions of dollars trading this morning that I think Chinese companies that are not compliant, they're going to get delisted. I think this new sheriff at the SEC isn't going to mess around. And I think this is important to continue the pressure on China to come to the table.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So take a look at this graph. So U.S. exports to China, $143 billion. U.S. imports from China, $438 billion. That's a deficit of $295 billion.
Wow.
That of items that should be made in America.
In America.
And that's what this is all about, is America first. This is what we want. So this is the way to go about it. Is
Yes,
fair trade.
That is awful. Yes.
And I know that some companies are coming back to the United States. I don't have a list of which ones, but there's been a few that have said that they will bring their manufacturing back to the United States. So it's a start. It's going to be rocky. It's not going to be comfortable. But eventually it's all going to balance out and it's going to be America first. But, you know, we're going to have to deal with some pain. Change takes pain sometimes, and it's uncomfortable. But, you know, it's like working out in the gym. If you haven't been working out in the gym for a long time and you start, your muscles are going to hurt.
Yes. That's true.
It's a start, but is it enough? Well, that's Angela's question. It's a start, and hopefully eventually it will be enough. But there has not been any president in history that's taken this on. Even Reagan, he did it softly and ended up backing down. But you know, even though the Soviet Union collapsed, he didn't do it as boldly as Trump's doing it.
Right.
So,
right.
You know, and we have to remember he hasn't even been 100 days in office, and all this is happening.
I know.
It's you know, it took decades to get here.
Hopefully not decades to get out.
To get us that out.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a lot of corruption and there's going to be a lot of things exposed. I mean, there already is, you know, the House Oversight Committee has exposed a lot of the Biden's dealings with China and Ukraine, you know, Hunter Biden selling his father, you know, pay for play stuff. You know, so you got all that. There's a lot to it. It isn't, and there's a lot of stuff that we will never know. It's just, and it makes me sick now that all this stuff is coming to light. And I realize this is what we prayed for over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, is God to do something. And I truly believe that if President Trump was to actually get in office in 2020, a lot of this stuff wouldn't have been exposed. We wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It took something terrible to happen for it to, and it usually does. I mean, when you think about it, you know, bad things have to happen before people wake up.
Right.
So he's got 4 years. We're not even at 100 days. So I think good things are coming, and it, you know what he what he's doing so far. I'm pleased. You know, I can say it, MAGA more than ever. So you know, the big thing too is, and this gets into the negative media, and Carl Higbie says it best, and I'm not going to steal his thunder. This is a long clip. This is his monologue from Wednesday, his Wednesday show on the tariffs, because a lot of people are scared about the stock market, and it's been pretty volatile. They don't like the stocks don't like the uncertainty of the tariffs, but he explains this. So I'm going to cue this up.
Okay. How long is that clip, Kathy?
It's 11 minutes.
Okay. Just thinking, who else? Bye. Okay. Angela, we have to make sure the one that is in office next does the same thinking as Trump. Yeah, or at least close to it, or
Yeah, no, the next one in office needs to be America First. And we need to remember that. And I'm having issues over here. Okay. All right. Let's see if that works. There we go. Okay, here we go. Maybe.
Don't blink, you'll miss a 9.5% move in the stock market. This is the single largest upward swing in the daily market since World War II, folks. What did I tell you? I told you this was likely going to be wrapped up in its majority by the end of the week.
It's working out. I can tell you, working out maybe faster than I thought. But I said it's going to take a little conditioning. It's a transition to. I think it's a transition to greatness. It's going to be greatness. Our country is going to be. There'll be nothing like it. And people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before. We have more car manufacturers, Roger, coming into our country now. Speaking of cars. We've never seen anything like it. And they're coming in because of the election, but they're coming in because of the tariffs.
And here we are, hump day, 3 days after Trump launched this reciprocal tariff policy, and 75 nations have come to the table.
And we saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot. Do not retaliate, and you will be rewarded.
That guy has been up all night. Look, you will be rewarded with cheap access to the world's largest economy, which is us. Imagine that. Trump was right again. But the other thing that I think is very important to note, and Caroline Leavitt kind of touched on this at her press conference with Bessent, the left wing took this as an opportunity to hurt Trump. Forget the American people, they said. For the last 4 days, the media, the liberal media, has been attempting to appeal to their economically illiterate audience to further hurt the market. You know why markets are going down? You know why they go down, why they are down? Because people think they're going to go down. Look very carefully at who was on what networks telling people that the sky was falling.
There is a lot of concern and fear, levels that we've rarely seen outside of the COVID crash and the 2008 financial crisis. Talking to investors and analysts and economists, I don't think I've ever heard them as concerned and confused and just sort of frustrated.
Donald Trump's tariffs, it comes as the president's trade policies continue to rattle the markets. This could be the end of American exceptionalism. When all these countries are watching this disaster play out and we're insulting them, they could take their toys, they could take their money and say, I'm not investing in your stocks, I'm not investing in your bonds, I'm done with you, America.
That's what they wanted. I mean, this is as close to insider trading as you can possibly get. And it was very coordinated. Think about this. Instead of trying to help the country, help the people they say were being hurt by this, what was the left doing? They were sending who they think were the most credible of their side out onto all the major TV networks to try to convince millions of Americans that they should sell their stocks to create a stock run, which is causing more people to sell their stocks, which caused the markets to go down more, which caused some of the other people to sell more of their stocks. And instead of being genuinely worried about it, God forbid, try to help Trump fix it, Democrats just were out there perpetuating the narrative. And then when somebody goes on one of those same networks and says, hey guys, slow your roll, let's weather the storm, don't freak out, they send who knows how many trolls to go attack them. Like this, Dave Portnoy, who ended up being right, by the way.
It's uncomfortable. Anytime a stock market is like this and you're invested in it, it's certainly uncomfortable. But I stand with it. He ran on tariffs. He said he was a tariff fan. And I don't pretend to be an economist. I don't think I realized that we'd have this market crash. I don't think most people did. But I think he believes in what he's doing and trying to basically strong arm China and get better deals for the U.S. I'm willing to still give him time.
Seems super reasonable to me. Look, I don't really think he cares what these liberal trolls say. I certainly don't. But this is the attitude we collectively as America need to have. Folks, I think this is the problem we have today. And now that we're kind of like through the worst of this, we need to dissect what just happened here. Okay? This showed that Americans don't know what sacrifice is anymore. Think about it. We had, as a society, we complain about literally everything, any minor inconvenience. Walking around this country at 32% body fat on average, ordering Uber Eats from 3 blocks away. We whine about any minor inconvenience, even if it's our own fault. But think about this, folks. Reflect on this. It's so good here in America. For the first time in the history of civilization, we here in America have it so good that the primary health concern among poor people is obesity because we have too much to eat. We have reached a place in society today where the majority of Americans' portfolio is more important to them than their country. That hurts my soul to say that. How do we get back to a place where people's pride and faith in their country exceeds their concern for their personal portfolio? During World War II, people left their businesses. They just boarded them up and shut them down. They put them on pause, kissed their kids on the forehead, and volunteered to storm the beaches of Normandy. Many of those people actually lied about their age because they were too young to go fight. How many 16-year-olds do you know today that would drop their friends, their video games, their iPhones, and their sports to go march to almost certain death in another country? I'll tell you, it's about 0% of Democrats. And honestly, a lot of members of Congress, too, on both sides. And I know all this because these people just panicked. They threw a temper tantrum and was ready to throw in the towel because they might have to pay more for some stupid gadget on Amazon that they don't even need. Huge swaths of Congress, many Republicans, what was their response to this? Instead of knuckling up and having faith in a guy that 77 million of us elected, they were about to try to pass a law to take away Trump's right to negotiate tariffs. No. We have become so soft that we do not know how to make sacrifices anymore, even for 5 days. Let's review what just happened this last week. This was a test. We were just presented with our nation's version, our generation's version of the post-Pearl Harbor posters that went up that said, Uncle Sam, pointing at you, I want you for the U.S. Army. Trump wanted you to put America first and yourself second for a week, and most people couldn't do it. And I said the whole time, we have to weather the storm, because if we had caved, we would have just endured all this market loss for no reason. But Trump, thank God, he held strong. And what happened? What happened? Oh, look, 75 nations said, hey, DJT, we got to make a deal on this. What's the result? Stock market jumped 7% in 8 minutes, 10% by the close of the day. Trump's he completely modernized the entire world against China. He mobilized everybody against him. He effectively added a 10% tariff to every single one of the countries you see scrolling right now, and they're happy about it. This is the art of the deal. If Trump had outright just imposed a 10% tariff on all these people, we'd still be in this slump. But he swung for the fences, bowed up, and then compromised down. And now most of the world, most of the modern production world, is thanking him for essentially taxing them 10% more. Folks, doubt Trump at your own peril, and I'll call you a fool. This is what I think very intelligent commentators like Ben Shapiro, who I generally like, were missing. This is as recently as yesterday.
What you should do if you want a better trade deal with Italy is go to Italy and tell them you want a better trade deal, or you're going to smack them. Because then you have the world's largest economy fighting not the world's largest economy.
We had a whole breakdown on this. But yeah, in traditional diplomacy, maybe, but we tried this for the last 2 months. These tariffs were the product and the response to them not listening and not taking the meeting. And it took this last week of Trump actually doing it for them to realize that he was serious. Was it a huge gamble? Oh, yeah, absolutely it was. Could have things gone horribly wrong? Oh, yeah, they could have. But they didn't. And I knew they wouldn't, because all the other leaders of all those other nations are exactly like the spineless leaders of our nation for the last 30 years, which got us into this debacle, which cared more about their reelection campaigns, their popularity, and whatever else. And then they didn't even bother to fix the massive systemic and detrimental problems to our economies. This is what I voted for. I voted for the guy who was willing to blow up the entire system in order to fix it. I voted for the guy who I knew would come out on top, because that's what he does. That's why he's president against all odds twice now. They have tried to shoot him in the face. They have tried to bankrupt him. They have tried to put him in jail. And then he beat them all. That is the guy I knew was headed into the negotiation table. Why would you bet against that? Look, are we out of the woods yet? No, not entirely, but we are in a much better position now than we have been in for the last 40 years. Think about this. 5 days. 5 days. It was us versus the world. Trump brought the entire world's economies, all of them, to heel. That means fishermen, auto workers, oil field workers, steel companies, farmers, and everybody who transports supplies and supports all of them and more. Tens of millions of jobs are now 10% more competitive in the global workforce. And the one holdout, China, how are they faring all this now? Their currency's cratered like 30%. iPhone's moving its manufacturing out to India, along with a ton of other companies. Amazon is canceling contracts with some of the gadgets and doodads that they produce there. The next step, here, personally, if you really want to screw over China, wrap up this Ukraine war and tell Russia, hey, if you withdraw from Ukraine, we'll drop all the sanctions on all of your exports right now and just slap a small 10% tariff on. Chinese markets will combust. It could be the end of the CCP. Some economists say we're not out of the woods yet. I say that's okay. Trump just built a house in the woods. And I tweeted this out last week. Quote, to all the critics of Trump while the market is down, I anxiously await your applause when it shoots up in the next few months. Didn't even take a few months. I'll expect your applause now, Libs.
Gotta love Carl Higbee. He's on fire. You're muted.
Yes.
He brings it. He brings it. But, it's true. China's in trouble. China is in trouble. And we got to take it back. And it has been 4 decades.
So if Trump is able, President Trump is able to, if President Trump is able to fix this, can it get reversed by another president, so a Democrat could go back and make it unbalanced when all this has been worked and we had. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because the reason and part of it, the big part of it is he's doing it by executive order. So the next president can undo his executive order. Just like Biden did day one, undid all those executive orders, closing the border and all that stuff, and he just reopened everything up.
So all this work he's done.
Yeah.
If another president gets in, they could undo it if it's not a Republican president. They
Well,
could
even a
undo it
Republican
by
president.
executive. They
Even
could
a Republican president. I mean,
yeah, no, but I'm saying they could
right.
undo it.
Anybody
So
can undo it. So the only way to solidify all of this is his agreements with these countries need to have a bill through Congress and the Senate to make them permanent.
And also I would say this, maybe this is why too he was going so fast at it, because this is my logic when I'm thinking. So all these things that he has done by executive order, if it renders good results, then people will see we want this. And the pressure, you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and the pressure's on. But the thing is, if a bill is not passed and become permanent through Congress and the Senate, it doesn't matter what we want, because look at years past. The government, people in government don't listen to what we want. They don't care. The Democrats still don't care. They want their agenda, and it's all about lining their pockets, and it's not about the American people. And there is even some Republicans that are still, not for the American people. They're not for the American first agenda.
wow. Oh, enjoy.
Shireen, yeah,
Yes,
that looked like a good movie.
yes, I'm going to see that today
Yeah.
myself. Yeah.
So, yeah, elections have consequences. We need to know who we're voting for. We need to reach out to our congressmen and senators and let them know we want this. We want bills passed to solidify what Trump is trying to do.
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah. So that's it on tariffs.
yes. So this will be an ongoing. It will be an ongoing thing.
Yep, it's not over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have more on it in the future.
Yes.
So with that said, is there any questions
that
we didn't cover?
Yes, Angela, do you have any questions? Teresa, if you're still with us, do you have any questions? And anyone in the eye, do you have any questions as well? I don't see.
I don't see anything.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Please share this live stream. Hit the notification button, subscribe, so you don't miss an episode. And we thank you. We missed you guys. We're glad we're back. Yeah. And any parting words do you have, LaTanya?
I just want to just say to everyone, well, first I do want to say thank you all for being such just dedicated and showing up, and we appreciate it. Angela, Teresa, Shireen,
yes,
and others, we really do appreciate it, and taking out time on a Saturday to join in with us. So that means a lot. And good to have y'all back. Even checked Rumble. Yes, yes. So my ending statement would be let's really pray for President Trump.
Yes.
If anything else, he is exposing things. Things are being exposed. I don't know if I really think that he set a presence that moving forward, at least maybe on the Republican side, that they would follow the template, because he's actually laying a template.
Right.
That after him, that people, maybe who were scared to try, they see that, you know what, this is what the people want. And the thing is, that's the whole thing why the government, now that I'm learning more about government stuff, is that the government is really, they're there because of the people.
That's right.
That is,
well, that's what the Constitution said.
and the people are the ones who pay their paycheck. So if the people actually say, we don't want government no more, we could be a country without a government. Am I correct, or am I taking it too far? Am I correct with that? If it just really ever got to a point where the people were like, we don't want to pay your taxes, no, pay your salary,
there would be a revolution, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, and with everything coming out, it's a possibility that it could come to that. Right. I don't know.
And that's why Caroline Levitt, she keeps, you're froze? Okay. That's why Caroline Levitt keeps saying, what President Trump is doing, he was mandated by 78 million people, blah, blah, blah. So she continues to keep speaking that, to let people know that he is not out here just doing whatever he wants to do. This is what he campaigned on. People have short memories. So it's like she is reminding, this is what he is not doing anything that people are like, this is what the people who voted him for, and enough of the American people voted for him. He won, so that's how it goes. So he wants what's best for everybody, but he is following the mandate for the people who overwhelmingly voted for him.
Right.
And I think
Absolutely.
this is so good, because I think the American people have been beating down so much to where they have just like, they're going to do whatever they want to do. It doesn't matter. And I think what is bringing back is maybe just, I don't know if morale is the word I'm trying to look for, but bringing it back and reminding people, you do have a voice. Your voice do count, because a lot of people thought, it doesn't matter. They're going to do whatever they want to do anyways. And that was,
that was the one thing.
Exactly. And hopefully people see that that's not the case.
Well, look at California. Look at California. This last election, 40% of Californians voted for Trump. 40% of the counties in the state of California turned red. We had counties flip from blue to red. We, the people, have the power to speak. We, the people, need to vote. Your vote matters.
It does.
And, we're going to keep hounding that, because in 18 months, we got the midterm elections coming up. Mm-hmm. And that could change everything for President Trump if he loses the House and the Senate. He will get nothing done, people. Nothing. We need to make sure that we stay in the majority, and that's, Republican and independents, because independents are not happy with the Democrat parties and what's going in that direction. Not at all.
So what are we saying, Kathy, with that? This is what I'm thinking or saying. At the midterms election, all the people who showed up for President Trump for the election, you need to show up. Plus, you need to really start pandering to the independents or the others who are on the swing. That is what is going to need to happen. I know there was some elections. We had some here in Florida and other places, and in those other places, it still stayed kind of strong. Here, it was like they were hoping to flip it, but they weren't
They
able
didn't.
to.
Yeah.
But I would say those who come across this right now, etc., start thinking ahead, thinking about
Mhm.
midterm. Don't think that the only reason why, one of the reasons why President Trump is able to have went like to do the things that he's been able to do is because he had the House and the Senate. So don't
Exactly.
forget about that.
We
That
need that.
want to
And the
pay.
other good thing too is that President Trump signed an executive order that all federal elections need to have proof of citizenship and ID.
So that's going to be, so that will be good moving.
So that will be good, especially in the midterms, because I know, like the state of California, our stupid governor signed a bill that says it's illegal to ask for ID at elections. And we tried to overturn it, and it was turned down. It's a mess. But federal elections, if there are federal, which means U.S. congressmen and senators, not state, the feds, that means to vote on those ballots, you need to show ID and citizenship. So it's going to make it harder to cheat.
Okay.
It's going to make it harder to get in these, 20 million illegals that came into the country over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
That's another episode, and we might be talking about that next time.
Okay.
About immigration and the deportations and all the stuff that's going on with that, because these judges, man, these activist judges have no business in executive orders. They don't.
Yeah.
So
we'll break that down next time. Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
with that said, we thank you. We're praying for you. God bless to you. And please like, subscribe, and share.
Yes, please.
God bless.
God
Till
bless.
next time.
Till next time.